You know,
what you
I don't
needed
know.
was this.
Yeah.
Hey, Mina, this is a great idea. Lovely idea. I feel your
That was
passion
amazing.
every step of the way. I'd watch the hell out of this show. I'd binge all 4 seasons of it right now. I'm telling you, it's a hit. I'm ordering this show. That's what you needed.
Yeah, that's what I needed.
That's what you needed every step of the way.
Welcome to Growth Untold, the podcast, where we dive into thoughtful conversations and insightful discussions with world-class people, all with the aim of inspiring, educating, and empowering our listeners.
We are thrilled to have you here with us on this exciting journey to explore the diverse stories and the ideas that have the power to shape the world for the better.
Welcome to Growth Untold, the podcast. On today's episode of Growth Untold, we are joined by an award-winning actor and comedian. Well known for his iconic role as Kimchee in Kim's Convenience, he has also co-created and stars in the hit show Run the Burbs on CBC. With a career that spans improv, television, and film, he has become a powerful voice in Canada's entertainment landscape. Join us as we dive into his journey, his advocacy for diversity, and how he continues to push the boundaries of representation in media. Welcome, Andrew Phung.
Oh, thank you for that intro.
Look at that.
sir.
Look at
Love
that.
it.
I like it.
You into it?
Yeah. Hey, just everyone take a deep breath and lower your expectations right now. That was a pretty hype intro. I don't know if I can live up to that intro.
You will. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man.
Of course.
I love the feeling of just joining some dudes playing N64. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we want. That's what we're
That's
going
your vibe,
for.
yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And you're from Toronto. Well, you're not from Toronto.
Calgary.
From Calgary.
From Calgary.
Yeah.
But
But I
you-
have the spirit and energy of someone that's from Toronto. Like when people meet me, they're like, "You're from Scarborough." I'm like, "I am not,
Yeah.
but I will take it."
Yeah, I was just
Right?
going to say that. That's why I thought Run the Burbs. When
Yeah.
I heard about that, I was like, yo, this guy's from Scarborough.
Scarborough, yeah. Well, it's because I'm from northeast of Calgary, which is the Scarborough
Of Calgary.
Of Calgary. And for people who are watching this from Calgary, you totally understand my reference here.
How was that growing up Vietnamese in Calgary?
Well, the thing about the northeast of Calgary is the most culturally diverse area of the city.
Oh, that's awesome.
So every wave of immigration ended up in the northeast. So you'd get pockets of like the Chinese immigrants, the Vietnamese immigrants, the Indian immigrants, Pakistani immigrants, Sudanese immigrants, Somali immigrants.
Wow.
Like every conflict was basically an immigration pattern into the northeast of Calgary. And so for me, growing up, all of my friends were of diverse backgrounds.
Okay.
All of my friends were Asian, Black, Indigenous, Costa Rican, Indian, like all the cultures. So for us, living in the Northeast was like such like a special thing. And it wasn't until we left the Northeast that you're like, oh, Calgary isn't as diverse as it was in the Northeast. Calgary's
Right.
much more white. But I think it really led into like a really wonderful upbringing.
Siblings?
No siblings.
Only child?
Only child. So like basically my friends and I raised each other because all of our parents, immigrant parents, were busy working
yeah.
nonstop. So we literally raised one another.
Wow.
You know, like we had this one friend recently, I thought about him, Rudy. He like would drive us to the mall, but he made us sit in the back seat. Like, so like he sat in the front seat with no one beside him.
Like he
And
was the driver?
Yeah, he was the driver. And I'm like, I appreciated him because he treated us like he was a year older than us, but he treated us like we were his kids.
Oh, man, that's
yeah.
so sweet.
amazing.
So, guys, go sit in the back.
Yeah, go sit in the back. There was like another guy, Mark. One time he noticed my friend didn't have a winter coat. He was like, "Yo, Derek, come here," and went to the back trunk of his car. and was like, "Pick out a winter coat," and Derek picked out a sweet winter coat. Where did he get a trunk full of winter coats? I don't ask that question. But for me, I look at the
It's
wonderful
Calgary.
thing. It's Calgary. You got it. But like he gave my buddy a winter coat when he didn't have one because he didn't want him to be cold.
We didn't have cool friends like that, man.
No, well, we have each other, man.
Yeah, we had each other, but other than each other, we did not
No.
have a lot of ethnic kids of color in our schools. We were probably
didn't.
two of the only kids of color,
Yeah.
unless you consider like Italian kids of color. I don't know, but two of the only. And then high school was a little bit better,
Yeah.
a little bit more
A little bit.
diversity, but not much. So it's crazy that you had more diversity in Calgary than we did in
You went to
Markham,
high school
Ontario.
in Calgary.
High school in
right?
Calgary, elementary, everything in Calgary. And so,
Okay.
and the thing is that like I'm still really tight with like my friends from grade 3, and my wife is always like, because my best friend from grade 3 lives 10 minutes from me in Toronto.
Wow.
And she's like, what a rarity, you know, that to have like literally so many of my friends from high school, elementary are still my friends now. And so we just had this bond growing up and taking care of each other, which I think is very much like a Northeast mentality.
And how'd you get into stand-up comedy or the arts? What was that journey like?
Well, for me, it was improv comedy that
Okay.
I was getting into. And so when I was in high school, my drama teacher saved whatever budget she had. And she brought in an improv instructor to come and do a week workshop with us. And it changed our lives. And so at the end of it, she said, well, if you're interested in improv comedy, there's a theater in Calgary called the Loose Moose Theater. You can go down there and they train you for free. And the Loose Moose is where the Kids in the Hall came out of, and a ton of Canadian actors have come out of that place. So we started going down to Loose Moose, taking the bus, taking my Honda Civic down to Loose Moose and taking classes for free. And I took those classes. I've never paid for an improv class.
Was it like government funded or something?
No, it's just their model was like they don't pay their performers. It was all volunteer run. And because of that, they could train performers for free.
Wow.
We volunteered box office, ushering, concession, all those things. So really, they only had 2 paid staff,
Right.
and everyone else was like volunteer. But for the trade-off was I got to take classes for free. I got to be in shows. I got to do kids theater, which like helped me hone my skills. And so it's like it comes down to access.
Yeah.
Because we were like, wait, you're an Asian comedian from Calgary? It doesn't quite compute, but it's because there was no barriers to access. I could go do that without my parents having to pay any money. And because of that, I got hooked on it. It
Yeah.
became like this such addictive thing.
And your parents were cool with it.
They weren't not cool with it because they didn't really know. And for me, like for me, it was like a place to be safe and to like not stay out late. And like it made me better in school because I was like more focused on like if I did well in school, I could go down Loose Moose on the weekends. For my parents, they're just like, oh,
You're doing well in school.
you
You're
can
good.
do whatever you want, man.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until much later that they came and started coming to my shows. But by that point, I was in my 20s and I was much better at my art form.
Right.
And at that point, my parents were like, oh, you should do this.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, it's like the opposite. For a lot of Asian kids, you know, or kids of color, their parents discourage them from the arts. But like for
Yes.
me, it was helping me in school. I went to university for a degree in econ. I didn't think I was going to do comedy as a living, but I just started getting good enough to be able to bring in work that got me there.
And then what? You moved to Toronto after that?
No,
Or
man, I
what'd
stayed
you
in
say?
Calgary.
Really?
I built my career in Calgary, like
Really?
because I didn't think I was ready to make that jump, and I didn't even know what that jump looked like. Like for you, man, like you know, like your career, it's like your first role, like you were terrorist number 3, you know, like
Yeah, it was Al Qaeda number 2.
Yeah. What's the jump? You can't see it, right?
Yeah.
So like when you're in that position, you're trying to figure out the path. So for me, I was like, well, what's my path in Calgary? And so I did a lot of corporate emceeing. I taught a lot of workshops. I did residencies in schools. I would go in and teach in high schools. So I was the only guy doing it. So I could teach in like 7 or 8 high schools in a year, which is great. $50 an hour. I hosted events. That's like $1,000, $2,000 an event.
Yeah.
So you start piling that up, and I'm like, that's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah.
And I had a full-time job. And then I started running my own improv show every week, and so that was a profit split with the theater. So I was building my career in Calgary because I thought I was going to be in Calgary. I was going to take over the Loose Moose Theater. I thought that was going to be my thing. And I booked Kim's Convenience out of an improv show in Edmonton. So I was in Edmonton doing a show at the Edmonton Fringe called Kill Hard, an improvised action movie. So me and you, we're going out, we're dressed in like white tank tops, and we're just like generic action heroes. And we go to the audience, we're like, "What's your job?" And someone's like, "Well, I'm a teacher." I'm like, "Okay." We ask about their job, and like, we're gonna present to you the action movie called The Teacher.
Right.
And we do a thing where one day the teacher is at school, and like there's a letter that comes in when the kids has been kidnapped, and it's like, I gotta. You have a special set of skills, right?
Right.
And so we improvised the whole thing, and
So like a 2-man show.
it's a 2-man show.
Improv 2-man show.
2-man show. We play all the characters.
Wow.
So like there's usually a hero, and we'll swap places.
Right.
I loved it whenever the hero had to go fight. Every improvised one. There's like certain things we always did, and one of them was the hero always had to fight a gang a villainous gang, but they were all siblings.
Right, yeah.
So at some point, I had to play 16 siblings in a fight scene, you know. And then at one point, I'm like, "You killed all my siblings," and we had to count how many are dead. And it's like, "You killed 17? There was an extra sibling." So it's like, we had a ton of fun with it. And in the audience one night was the creator of Kim's Convenience, who stayed after the show, told me about Kim's Convenience, the play, which I had heard about, and said, "I want you to audition for the TV show." I auditioned for the show 4 months later, and then 2 months after that, I was cast, and then a month after that, I was making the show.
Damn. So were you doing film and TV at all up until that point? Because you asked, asked what's that jump look like?
Yeah.
I went to theater school. I graduated with a BFA, and my goal at the time was truly like just book Stratford. Like I booked Stratford or Shaw Festival, and I probably would have been happy. There was this actor, my drama teacher Dory would be mad at me because I won't remember his last name, but Juan.
Yeah.
And Juan was like a Stratford actor for like 35 years.
Yeah.
And he was still doing Stratford and Shaw.
Yeah.
He was an amazing actor. I was like, I want to be like Juan.
Yeah.
I want to just do theater for like 35 years. Like
Yeah.
that was my thing. And then by the time I got into fourth year, and I saw a colleague of mine drop out of theater school, move to LA, and I was like, maybe I should do that. And then as soon as I started learning the economics of being an actor, especially under ACTRA in Toronto, I was like, I think I'm better off. I'm gonna struggle anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm better off struggling in the U.S., where if I book something, I'll make a lot more money than struggling in Toronto, finally booking something and making no money. Because at that point, I had already booked a show here, Open Heart, that was the same creators of Degrassi.
Yeah.
And I made like no money. I made $12,000 for the whole show.
Yeah.
For the whole show. 12 episodes or 10 episodes, $12,000. I was like, I could be making like $200,000 in the US. So I was like, I'm going to go to the US. But up until that point, I thought I'm just going to do theater. So did you think you were going to do film and TV at all when you were in Calgary, or not until Kim's Convenience and then you were like, oh?
Well, firstly, shout out Justin Kelly. Open Heart.
Love Justin. Yeah, me and Justin, he helped me get my manager, who's still my manager.
Is he your manager? He's on Hudson and Rex.
Yes.
Now?
Yes, he is. Yes.
I love Degrassi. Firstly, I love Degrassi.
Yeah.
So like I'm a big Degrassi head. So wherever they went, you check out the
followed
projects.
them.
Yeah. No. Short answer is no. I did a couple of like non-union gigs in Calgary. And it's like there's this one show I made called Let's Talk English. And it was like sketch comedy, but for like English language lessons. It's a pretty cool concept. Basically, we would teach newcomers like a phrase. So the phrase is like, hey, this one's on me. What does that mean to like a newcomer, right?
Right.
And so we did a sketch. We're at a bar, and I'm like, hey, guys, this one's on me. And they're like, Andrew, what do you mean this one's on you? I'm like, no, these drinks, they're on me. And they're like, okay. They all poured their beer on me. I'm like, no, this one's on me means I'm going to pay for it. And they're like, oh. And so it's like, I guess I'm in a pickle. Like, what does that mean to a newcomer? So I'm really proud of that show. Omni made 120 episodes of that.
Wow.
They aired the hell out of that show.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I was doing like non-union stuff like that, but like nothing on a larger scale. And like, again, same with you, like going out for auditions and like roles. And I remember I went out for Hell on Wheels, and it was for a Chinese railway worker, right? I was like, I don't know if I feel good about this.
Holy shit,
right?
man.
So I went in, and I remember I looked, and it was a room full of Asians. I'm like, my brothers, we are here. We made it. We're here. And then I didn't get it, obviously. And I asked my agent, I'm like, I'm just curious.
Why, obviously?
Well, I didn't. So here's the obvious.
Do I look like a railway worker to you? I obviously didn't get this shit.
Here's what happened. I asked my agent, I'm like, what's the feedback? And she said, they said you were too well nourished. And I was like, okay.
They called you fat.
Yeah, they called me fat.
They called
That's
you
what
fat.
they
They
said.
called you fat.
Jesus.
But they're not wrong. I am too well nourished to be a railway worker. Like, if we're looking at historical accuracy. But I didn't see myself, because I just felt like those are the only roles that were happening, and I didn't fit them as they were being filmed in Alberta, because Alberta is like very much a land of like Westerns.
Yeah.
So if they are making Westerns, typically when they're Asian roles, they are railway workers. And respect and honor to our ancestors who did that work, because they sacrificed so much to be in this country and to be a part of the Canadian fabric,
Yeah.
I look back at that Canadian Heritage Minute and I cry. Like, I have such pride, when they say there's one dead Chinese man for every mile of the track. And as an adult now, I have such pride with it because I know there's pain and there's struggle with it. But for me, the Asian community has risen from that. They've risen from that place. And now we are successful. We are part of this country. But going back to acting, I didn't see myself in any of the work. So when
you were probably much happier doing the stuff in Calgary, the theater, the
improv comedy,
Omni,
because improv comedy, I could be anything.
Yeah.
I could be anything. I could be an action hero.
Yeah.
And so I didn't see it. And Kim's literally changed. Like, Kim's Convenience changed the path for representation in the media, but also for me as a performer, it made me feel like, oh, it is possible. So that became the path. Right?
Yeah.
So I didn't see it happening just because it wasn't, and there's, you had this quote recently that really hit me. You said after Aladdin, you didn't audition for anything for a year.
Yeah.
I still feel that way, man.
Yeah.
I still feel that way. And the only way for me to get work is to make work.
Mm-hmm.
And only way for me to be, to be seen is to create opportunities to be seen.
Yes.
And so that work's still happening.
Yeah.
Or we're still doing that. But yeah, I didn't see it happening, right? Because every time I went out, it was these roles that I wasn't a fit for.
Yeah. And you did that for 4 to 5 seasons, Kim's Convenience?
5 seasons of Kim's Convenience, and then I did 3 seasons of Run the Burbs.
Yeah.
And so I was that's a dream run to make 8 seasons of shows that represent the Asian community in a diverse and inclusive way. And Run the Burbs was an expansion on that.
Oh yeah, well, Run the Burbs is an incredible accomplishment because you also created the show.
Yeah.
And that's a different level of success, no matter what anybody says. So congratulations on that. I selling a show, being an actor is one thing, but selling a show, creating a show, selling it to a studio, that's a whole other beast in itself. And then acting in it as well and starring in it. So congratulations on that. That's an incredible feat.
Yeah.
Did you transition more into writing, producing in your later, I don't want to say later years, make you sound older, but the last few years, have you transitioned more into that and creating your own work, or was that kind of always part of who you were?
Well, I've always been a hustler.
Right.
We always have to be hustlers.
Yeah,
100%. If you're
100%.
working as an artist in 2024, you got to be a hustler. You got to do multiple things. You're doing multiple things right now. You got a podcast. You're an actor. You sing. You dance. You do a little bit of everything. Right?
You have to.
You have to. Right? You travel the world talking about vegan recipes and
the food,
vegan
man.
diets, right?
Yeah,
food. And so it's you got to be everything. So for me, it was when I was making Kim's, I was like, I love this. How do I keep doing it?
Right.
And then it's sink or swim, right? And so for me, I'm when I was on set, I'd watch every piece of the crew, whether it was the director, the writers working, actors. I'm such a sponge. I love working with great actors because I'm going to steal everything you got. I'm going to watch you and sponge off you. So I realized that in order for me to keep doing what I loved, I needed to get good at other things to help enable the things that I'm good at and I love doing. So I knew that if I wanted to keep acting, I needed to write my own work. So it was during the 4th season of Kim's Convenience that I started developing ideas of things I wanted to do. And it was a joy to kind of come up with ideas. And it was a joy to take everything I'd learned over the years and bring it all together. So the writing was like a byproduct of just wanting to act, wanting to create,
right.
wanting to see more opportunities for me and people who look like me and people from other diverse communities that weren't often seen in our media. So yeah, just learning writing, being in writing rooms, developing the show, working with my co-creator Scott Townend based out of Edmonton. And so that was it. It was just always doing that. And I found that because I was able to accelerate those skills behind the scenes as executive director and writer, that informs my next phase in my career. It's creating more projects and writing. So that's what I'm really excited about right now. But I also get to keep acting, and I have a love for hosting, and I'm hosting a series now. So that's really fun to be able to move on and just have more projects to do.
Did you ever think about the move to the States? Like, I'm sure it crossed your mind. I'm sure you
Yeah.
thought about it. Take me through that. Like, what'd you think?
Season 2, Kim's Convenience, the show was blowing up. We were going to Netflix. And I went to LA and I met with a manager and I was like, okay, I was thinking about it, but I have 2 kids.
You already do at that
I
point.
already do at that point, young kids. I have my wife. We have a good life in Canada. So it was a choice for moving. We were in Calgary still, moving to Toronto or moving to LA. And for me, it came down to a couple things. One, I love Canada. I love living in this country. I wanted to create work and build in this country. And 2, I didn't want to move to LA and what you said earlier, struggle, so that I didn't want my kids to see me struggle and look back and be like, we went to this place and we're unhappy because dad wanted to make it.
Right.
And so whereas I've moved to Toronto, I had already kind of made it and I could keep building on that, but I could offer them a quality of life that I was really excited about.
Yeah, it's different when you have kids. I mean, I don't have any kids, but my dad always tells me that. My dad always says your life changes drastically when you get married, and then when you, even more so when you have kids. So it's different when you have kids because you're thinking about them more than you are thinking about yourself.
Yeah, that's like my everyday, man.
Yeah.
My everyday is thinking about them and what they're going to eat and what they're going to do and trying to give them opportunities I didn't have. Right?
Yeah.
But that's what it came down to, because so many of my friends in LA and in the US, there's obviously the success stories, but there's also the struggles. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And Simu at this time was trying to grind it out in LA, and like we would text and he was hitting walls, and I'm like, oh man, I didn't think I was ready to put my family in that situation.
Right. Yeah. No.
And so we moved to Toronto, and it's been such an amazing move, and I'm so happy that was a route. And on the flip side, I got to stay in Canada and I got to create something in this country.
Yeah. And you know what? I think I'm a firm believer that what's yours comes to you. And I think it'll come to you, just like Kim's Convenience came to you. I mean, you worked your ass off for it, but the opportunity came to you, as you were putting in the work. So I feel like, I believe that happens, that continues to happen. So.
Well, like, it's like you moved recently, and our environment needs to feel like home for us in order for us to create.
Yeah, this is true.
For us to be the best version of ourselves. Because I don't know if it's true, but like for everybody, but I'm sure there's been a point where you've been unhappy as an artist. And sometimes it is the environment around you that is adding to that unhappiness, right?
Mm-hmm. Most of the time. Yeah, most of the time. I mean, when I first moved to LA in 2017, I had less than I ever had before, right? Because in Toronto, I had my own condo here, and I was working at the restaurant, saving up money, but I was comfortable. I was making good money at the restaurant, and I had my own condo, so I was happy. And then I moved to LA, and I had less than I ever had. Yeah. I've told this story many times, but I legitimately rented out a closet inside a bedroom in a house in West Hollywood, but I was the happiest I'd ever been. Yeah. Because I felt like so in my element, and I also was the most confident I'd ever been. I was like, I just knew I was going to do well. Yeah. I knew I was going to succeed. Yeah. And then after that, after Aladdin, I became very unhappy. Yeah. And so I went through a cycle of deep unhappiness, I think, in my professional life, not my personal life. My personal life, I was happy, but in my professional life, I was so unhappy. And that, of course, bled into my personal life. Mm-hmm. It bled into my personal relationships. And that was a journey too, but that unhappiness was really coming, I think, from comparing myself to other people, comparing myself to an idea of where I thought I should be, and not actually living in the moment, not actually being grateful for what I did accomplish. Yeah. I was yearning so much for more that I forgot to appreciate what I had already accomplished and where I was. Yeah. And that caused me a lot of unhappiness. Yeah. And the journey to get back to being happy was, funny enough, I think a big part of it was to move out of LA. Yeah. I think LA was, like you said, part of my environment. It caused me a lot of happiness when I first moved there, but because of what I had done and what I had accomplished, it started causing me unhappiness.
Yeah.
And as soon as I moved, I began to kind of heal myself because I had removed myself from the environment which was stressing me out, causing me a lot of anxiety, reminding me of my weaknesses and not my strengths. So I do think the environment plays a huge part in your artistry and also just like your orbit. You know what I mean? Your energy. And if you don't have a good energy, you won't attract good energy. I think you've got to be in a positive energy. Yeah. Like I said, when I moved to LA, I was living out of a closet, but I was so happy to go outside every day.
Yeah.
Because in Toronto it was cold and snowy, and LA was fucking beautiful. So I was so happy. I was so happy to be there.
I visited Mina LA once. He knew instantly. He's like, "You're in love, eh?" I'm like, "Yeah, man. Honestly, one day I actually would want to live there." I don't know. I have an appreciation like you for Toronto.
Yeah.
I love the diversity.
Yeah.
I love the people.
Some people get smitten by LA. That's how I would say it.
I got a little bit of
For a lot of people, you get smitten the first time you go to LA. You're like, this is paradise. And he was smitten. He was smitten. He came to LA. We recorded a few episodes of the podcast, and he was just taken aback.
I was like, all right, so what I got to do to live here, Mina?
Yeah. That's the way I feel about Saskatoon.
What?
Genuinely, Saskatoon. I love Saskatoon.
Slaps?
You are the whitest Asian guy I have ever sat down with.
I was in Saskatoon with Paul's son, Young Lee, who's been on the show.
Yes.
And we were in Saskatoon. Didn't think I was going to like it. We're walking around. Delightful. Restaurants were a delight. Got some banh mi. I'm like, whoa, what is this banh mi shop? Go in. Woman tells me her story, her family. I'm like, love it. Love it. On the streets, people are like saying hi to us. Farmers are coming up saying, okay, see you. I'm like, what is up with Saskatoon?
Wow.
Go see a movie. There's like 4 people in the theater. I'm like, okay, this is all right. So every time I've been in Saskatoon, I'm smitten with it. And then people are like, what are you talking about, Andrew? And I'm like, yeah, but you go to a place, and because you're not getting the full breadth of it, right?
Interesting.
You fall in love with, like, you have such a great first impression. It's like dating. You meet someone at a party, you're like, this person's the best. And when someone's like, are we talking about the same person?
Yeah.
Right?
And then you get to know them, and then you start to see it. That's exactly what happened with me with LA. I was so smitten by it. I moved there in 2017. I spent all of 2018 shooting Aladdin. So it's like I moved there and then I left.
Yeah.
And so then I came back in 2019. I was like, oh, I still love this place. This is amazing. And obviously, you know, the press tours and the premieres, and I was like, this is incredible. And then COVID happened.
Yeah.
And then you start to really see the ugly side of places when things get tough, right?
Yeah.
That's when you see the real side of people and places and things when things get tough. And that's kind of when you start seeing the real side of it. But I could see you living in LA, you know.
I could, man.
I could
honestly,
see
You
that.
got kids? You got kids?
No.
No, man. You got,
Yeah.
Of course.
You can go wherever the fuck you want, bro.
Wherever you
I
want,
know,
man.
you know?
You could, this weekend, you could wake up and be like, I don't have anything to do. You don't got a birthday to go to. You don't have swimming. You don't have an eye doctor appointment. You don't have a play date. You don't have a medicine schedule to do.
A medicine schedule.
Yeah, you don't have any homework to deal with.
Oh, shit.
You know, you can do whatever the fuck you want, man. You got to enjoy that.
Damn.
You got every day, man. You got to enjoy that, man.
I feel
because
like
on the flip side, every day I'm like, okay, what's the routine gonna be like today? What's lunch like gonna be like today?
True.
Is Friday pizza lunch? Is there a parade on Thursday? Like I gotta.
Is there a parade?
It's Halloween on Thursday, so there's like a Halloween party costume parade.
Oh shit! What are they dressing up as?
My older son is going as Deadpool, and then my younger son is
Wolverine?
going as he's going as like the dinosaur costume, but it looks like alien costume, but it looks like the alien's kidnapping the person.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's going as
hilarious.
that. Yeah.
And what are you going as?
I went as Punisher, but I wanted to go as Gambit, but the Gambit costume I ordered off of Temu fits weird.
First mistake.
So it looks like it for sure looks like Temu Gambit. But I think I could pull it off enough that if I go commit to it. But yeah,
doesn't that make it funnier in a way?
It does.
Yeah.
It does make it funnier.
Yeah.
It does make it funnier. But then I just also wanted a cool costume, so I went as Punisher.
Yeah, me and Emily talk about that all the time. We're like, man, life is hard as artists as is. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready to have kids. Like, all my friends are having kids. That's just the age that we're at. I'm 33 now, and I'm probably going to be one of the last people from my friends group to get married. So I'm already kind of feeling not behind, but like, I'm already pretty late to the party, and they're all having kids, and I'm like, I don't know if I can do it, man. Like the financial stress that comes with being an artist and not knowing when your next job is and not knowing when your next paycheck is, and then adding kids on top of that, I don't know how I would handle it. I would be like, I don't know. And then some people are like, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Just have them. Have 5. You'll be okay. So that's some people's mentality.
Yeah.
What do you advise?
Wait, first, you're only 33?
Yeah.
Because because like, when you booked Nikita, like 2011?
Yeah.
Man, because like in 2011, you look like you were 33 then. It's like
Really?
It's like that Egyptian genes, man.
I just froze in time.
Yeah, when you turn 19,
I just
Egyptian
froze.
men look 33 until the age of 55.
This is true. You can
Right.
ask.
I will high school.
Yeah, I got made. The one thing I got made fun of the most growing up was the amount of hair I had.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
And so I think the hair makes you look old. Like I could grow a full beard, whereas other people couldn't at 18, 19. Yeah, that was 2011. So, I was 20. Yeah, I was 20 years
20,
old.
man.
I was 20.
He was
Coming out of school.
he was
Oh,
at
man.
I was still. I was very
Yeah.
lucky in that I had, like you, I had great drama teachers.
Yeah.
Great teachers even in theater school. And in theater school, they always used to tell you, like, you can't work while you're doing theater school because you're doing like 15-hour days every day. And I had an agent. I was lucky enough to have an agent at the time out of Toronto. And I booked a couple things, like I booked a show called King, and I got a guest star on that. And we were doing Shakespeare. And my Shakespeare teacher, God rest his soul, Ian Watson, I was like, listen, I don't know, I'm not supposed to do this, but like, I gotta go do this. Like, I booked my first guest star. Like, I gotta go do this show. And he was like, go do it. Tell Amy Price Francis she was the lead. He's like, tell her I say hello. I won't tell anybody anything.
Yeah.
I'll just tell them you're sick or whatever. So, I was very lucky that way, that even in theater school, I got to dip my toe into the film world.
Yeah.
But you're a result of your environment, you know?
That's the plot line of Degrassi Takes Hollywood. Manny Santos is in university, and Manny Santos's professor says, oh, you can't go do film and TV, but she travels to Hollywood to get the lead role in the film.
Really? When did that come out?
Degrassi Takes Hollywood? 2011, 2012 maybe?
Oh, that was before. Yeah, that was before
It's
my
available
time.
on YouTube, man.
Wow.
All the Degrassi Next Generation episodes are available on YouTube.
You're a big fan.
Big fan of Degrassi The Next Generation,
Amazing,
man. I
amazing.
could pull plot points.
Wow.
I was hanging out with Rhea Black, who plays Sav Bendari at like a ACTRA event.
Yeah.
And we're like hanging out, and I just dropped like a reference to Degrassi. He looked at me and was like, damn, you're like a fan. I'm like, yeah. And I just walked away.
You're an
I was like
OG.
too embarrassed at that point to continue this conversation. I'm like a product of Canadian media, man.
Yeah.
Like I
That's
love
awesome.
consuming what this country makes, and I'm really like, I make stuff in this country because I'm proud to be Canadian, and I'm proud to tell our stories, and I'm proud of what other creators are making, because I think we're genuinely doing some good work.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of like messaging around the lack of funding right now and the lack of opportunities, but I like you said, man, I believe in the good in the world, so I'm always trying to watch people's stuff.
So you're saying that you're a product of the Canadian media.
Mm-hmm.
What are you hoping to see in terms of a diverse storytelling standpoint, in terms of the media future state, like moving forward? Like, what are some of those things? You did Run the Burbs,
Yeah.
and that's like very enriched stories of diverse backgrounds. We mentioned Cardi before you jumped on. What are some other things you're looking for?
I just want cultural specificity. And so I think the terms we've used is representation, but I'm like, okay, let's look beyond that. I think it's the specifics that we love. When you watch a Kim's Convenience, it connected to so many audiences because you'd watch it, be like, oh, I know that thing they're doing. It's the cultural specificity of it, right? And so that's what we always strive for on Run the Burbs. Like, we are always trying to be really specific to this family. It'll be different for other families, but the hope was that you would connect to elements of what we were putting out there. But I just think that, like, when we're it's not so much telling different stories, it's just telling really culturally specific stories,
Right.
to Canadian families, right? And Canadian families is a very broad term because Canadian families look very different, right? But I love the specificity of it. I think a Canadian family in a small town in Nova Scotia is going to be different than a Canadian family out in Alberta. And I want to see all of that because all of it is great. And all of it, I think, is enriching. And all of it is something we connect to.
I think that's what I loved so much about South Korean film and TV that was coming out over the last few years, like Parasite, and you learn so much about their culture by just watching that because you're right, it's so specific. And I bet you it's specific to South Koreans. It's not like all Asians are like that. It's specific to South Koreans specifically. And that's what I loved about their content. I think they do an incredible job doing that.
Yeah, like I got a note recently on something I was doing, and someone they gave the person gave a note was like, I just feel like this reference will go over people's heads, and it was a skibbity toilet reference. All right, does it go? Do you know what a skibbity toilet is?
No, I don't.
Okay, great. You don't have kids, okay?
Yeah.
Skibbity toilet. Does anyone here know what a skibbity toilet is? Kids. How do you know about it?
She's the closest to being a kid, so she knows. She knows she's the youngest.
You're 20. So skibbity toilet. Okay, so you've aged yourself here, right? 20.
Yeah, I know.
Props social media person Rihanna over here. 20. Still connected with the teens and the kids. But skibbity toilet is like something like, it's just so dumb and stupid, but it's like kids are always like, yo, you're so skibbity. I'm like, what's skibbity? It's like, that's good. You're good. You're skibbity. And so I literally, the line was, I'm driving in a car as a dad on a road trip, and I turn to my kids. I'm like, kids, what's a skibbity toilet? Right? And then the people are like, oh, we're afraid it's going to go people's heads. I'm like, but you know who's going to get it? People my age and young people. Yeah. People my age will get it because they're like, what is a skibbity?
Yeah.
What is Riz? What is gyat? Right? I have to go look up what gyat is.
I don't know what that is. All I know from the three that you said is Riz, and someone had to teach me.
Gyat is like it's like being a gyat damn, and so it's like gyat. They just say that instead of goddamn. Like,
really?
Yeah. And so it's like stuff like that. And so there was like this clip of Pauly Shore talking from Encino Man, and Pauly Shore was like, "Hey, quit rizzing on my," and they're like, that's what kids sound like today. And I'm like, but I know Pauly Shore.
Yeah, he's Pauly Shore is like older, isn't he?
Yeah, he's older now. But my point of all this is that like, I think it's important to be really specific to audiences, because when we're worried about things going over people's heads, I also look on the flip side of like, but the people who get it will love it.
Right.
The people who get it are gonna be like, oh man.
It's kind of like really recently I've been thinking a lot about this, and we've talked about it on the podcast before, but it truly is something that I keep thinking about. It's that thing about like, if you try to be everything to everyone, you'll be nothing to no one.
Yeah.
And I think that's so true, and it's kind of what you're talking about when it comes to creating art.
Yeah.
You know, like the more specific, the better.
Yeah.
Because those few people who get it, it'll mean so much to them.
Totally.
And at the end of the day, that's better than just meaning nothing to everyone.
There's a scene in Run the Burbs I love. I'm talking to my dad, and my Vietnamese is terrible. And I'm sitting with him talking to my dad on the show, and I'm trying to speak to him in Vietnamese, but it's so broken. And I'm doing Vietglish. That's what we call it. Like Vietnamese English.
Yeah.
And my dad at one point just says, just speak English. Right? And it's because my dad does that to me in life. Just like, just tell me in English. I can handle it. But it's specific because the comments we got from kids who are Vietnamese, but also from other cultures, be like, oh, I know that.
Yeah.
You're trying to communicate, but you're like, your grasp of the language is so terrible, right? But it's like, again, it's like no one complained about not getting that scene, but the people who like really connected to it are like, oh, I feel seen in that moment.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to do things like that in our storytelling.
And it is hard as a creator. It is hard because executives tend not to get it. And they tend to think with the executive mind frame, which is, how are we going to get the most people to watch this as possible so it can't offend anybody? It's got to adhere to everybody. It's got to do this. It's got to do that. But you're right. As an artist, you're just wired differently. You're looking for authenticity, even if that authenticity is so specific that it doesn't touch everyone. you've done your job because it's so authentic. But executives tend not to see it that way. So that's the struggle as an artist now in film and TV, is that I feel like there's a bigger barrier than ever between the executives, the decision makers, and the artists. Partly because it's become such a big machine now. Like, I feel like, and I could be wrong, but I feel like studios back in the 70s and 80s, 90s, early 2000s, every decade. No, but I feel like studios back then, the executives were a little bit more in touch with the artists. It's like there wasn't as many people separating them. It's almost, I feel like Tarantino could go to like the executive and they were friends and they understood each other. That's the way I perceive it. It could be wrong, but that's the way I perceive it. Whereas now I just feel like there's such a barrier between all these people and the artist that it's hard. It's harder now to make the art you want to make, get it greenlit, and tell the stories you want to tell. Do you feel that way?
I don't know, man. Like, you make a really good point. Like, I'm just trying to process what you said, and I will say that I think the pressure is higher than ever to deliver like hits and to have impressions and trends that you're trying to connect. I would say that I think the pressure is high because we don't know how audiences are reacting now, because the audiences have changed so much.
Right.
Before, it's like if you put anything on TV, in like the 70s, 80s, and 90s, it was like, well, you'd get like 20 million viewers, and that might not be a good rating. That might not be good enough, right? But if you put something on Thursday on NBC, comedy, that was a hit show, right? And so I think now audiences are scattered all over the place now. So it's an effort. You're trying to fight for this audience now. And you're not fighting against other networks. You're fighting against TikTok and Instagram, and then what is it, the vertical drama, the vertical television now. Like, it's like little short. It's like coming out of Asia. It's like 1 minute soap opera clips.
Oh my god! So they did what Quibi couldn't.
They
literally did what Quibi couldn't.
Yeah, I got off of one of those recently. It was like an Asian vertical soap opera, 1 minute episodes, right? And so, like, that's where we're geared towards. And this was a joke 6-7 years ago. Like,
well, Quibi literally folded. I mean, they spent hundreds of millions of dollars, paid people a lot of money, and literally folded, I think, within a month or two of coming out. Yeah. So, but you're saying Asia's doing it now.
It's a thing now. But also, like, I've watched like Curb Your Enthusiasm and Sopranos this way on like YouTube Shorts.
That's
true. I'll watch a little clip of it. So I think the pressure is higher than ever. It's harder. The industry is in a place where it's so unknown now. Yeah. And so I think that's why there's reluctance from networks at times and executives of because they don't even know. They don't even know what we think is to be hit. I was watching this thing with Ryan Tedder, who from One Republic, and he was talking about music, and he had like a banger of a song, and he's like, if this is 2016, 2015, I can tell you this is a #1 single. In 2024, I don't know what's gonna pop anymore. And so,
are we just getting old, or is it just the reality of the entertainment industry right now?
Well, I think it's the reality of the world. It's so unpredictable now. Everything is so unpredictable, and we're being pulled in all these different directions. So what pulls us is so odd now. Why it's a hook on us, right? Like, my favorite YouTube series right now is this guy who literally walks around dead malls. Like, I love malls, shopping malls. Okay.
What are dead malls?
Malls that are dying. Like, their anchors have left. It's like a really sad mall.
But they're still operational, just sad.
It's like really sad. And he just walks around the mall, talks about the mall, the history of the mall. There's always GNC supplements.
Oh my gosh, they're still alive.
There's always a Bath and Body Works. But he goes around this mall and then he'll interview people still at the mall. Maybe it's a mom and pop laundromat. Maybe it's like the one food court stall left. But like, how can I explain that to a network exec of why this is a hit?
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
And is it a hit? It's got like millions
of views. But for me, I love it because I'll put it on and I'll like write. I'll like clean the house, and I love malls. So I love hearing the stories of these malls.
And it's nostalgic, right?
It's nostalgic, but it's like, if I went to a network, it's like, here's my pitch. I walk around a dead mall. Oh, that's it? I'm like, yeah, there's no Sears. There's no Target. All right? Gone. All right? It's just an empty mall. Well, what do? I just walk around it. Oh, okay. That's it. And
What's the point of this show?
That's the point of the show. That's the show. And it's like, oh, but I'm like, but I told you that, and I'm like, but if you go to the view counts, but then the comments, the engagement,
It's insane.
it's insane because people be like, oh, they'll comment on the mall. Some will say, I worked at this mall in like 1985,
and just tell stories.
stories of this mall. Right. At one point in one of these videos, there's a security guard on a Segway just going full speed back and forth because he's so bored at this mall that he literally just rides his Segway as fast as he can. But I'm like, how could you pitch that? But it's a hit.
Wow.
This is a side note, but I find it fascinating how fascinated you are in this random
Yeah,
thing.
man.
But I think it's
He's a weird guy. Can you tell by now?
We're all
love it.
weird guys.
we are. But I was gonna say, I think what's causing this is what the proliferation, like with the growth of Vine and TikTok.
Yeah.
It makes everybody a creator. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is, do you notice there's like a massive fragmentation of interest these days? Like people like slime. We had the CMO of
The
Gymshark.
kids, yeah, the
and
kids.
He's like, I know slime influencers. He's like,
Yeah.
I know the top 10 slime influencers.
Did you know about this?
Yeah.
Slime
didn't know
influencers?
this.
I didn't know.
Because
and
I
he taught us
watched,
what...
my kids would watch toy reviews.
Okay.
Ryan's toy review. A kid who, Ryan's toy review?
No.
You know Ryan's toy review? Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
How old are you? You're not 20 even. You're like 15, aren't you?
Yeah, they watch Ryan's.
I have nieces and nephews too. I don't know this shit.
So Ryan's toy review was this kid who just reviewed toys, and then we watched him grow up, and now he's like 15, and he does not want to be there. Ryan will show up and be like, "All right, am I done?" Leave. So it's his siblings now, and his parents are still doing it. But yeah, like it's just like toy reviews and like families growing up, and it's like there's all these like niche markets now. My wife has like a ton of influencers that are like Target hauls and Christmas vlogmas, they call it. They over the Christmas holidays, they vlog every day.
Wow.
Right? It's like stuff like it's so niche now, so specific.
And I watched, speaking of these platforms, I just watched a short video vertical on one of these platforms, and the guy was just explaining how money now is in the niches. Like, because being too general just doesn't work. Like, if you want to make money, whether it's starting a business or being an influencer, the money is in the niches. Like, you have to just adhere to a single niche, and that's where you make your money.
100%.
Yeah, like I follow a guy named from Vine. It was Danny LaPriore. I loved him as a Vine comedian, right? So I follow him from Vine to Instagram, and then for him, he went from Instagram to stand-up comedy. He does like these stand-up shows that he just travels around whenever he looks at his algorithm and follows it that way, right? But I'm like, that's his market, right? His market is following his audience, putting up shows where he has like pops of his audience, right? And it's the same for musicians. Musicians, you needed a record deal before. Like 20 years ago, you needed a video on Much Music.
Yeah.
You needed all those things, right? You don't need that anymore. And I would argue now, you could be even more successful having no record deal, but having a connection with your audience in your niche.
You need like 2 hits on TikTok. That's what you need.
2 hits on TikTok.
Yeah, like you need the hits on TikTok.
Yeah.
That's what you need now.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, man. A part of me feels...
Should we just be TikTok influencers?
Yeah, but that's the thing. Here's the thing. I hate the system and I love the system that I'm in. There's so much to love about the studio system for me as an actor, and then it's also really difficult, and a part of me struggles. I'm like, yo, if I just was like, I don't give a shit about the money, I don't give a shit about what anybody thinks, I'm just gonna create all day on YouTube, I think I'd be a very happy person. Because I would just be able to create. I would do improv. I would put on voices. I would do whatever the fuck I wanted, right? But that wouldn't work for the studio system. The studio system would probably be like, oh, he's an influencer now. Like he's failed and he's an influencer now. But so that's what you struggle with, because do you want to play within the system or do you want to get out of the system and do what you want? And so sometimes I really am in awe of these kids who are just like, TikTok, like that's all they do is they film for TikTok, they edit for TikTok, they post on TikTok, they repeat, and that's all they do. And I don't know if they're happy, but I would hope they are.
That's the OnlyFans model, and I kind of dig that.
Right.
Like I was joking with my wife today, literally today, where
about joining OnlyFans.
I said I would love to join OnlyFans and create an account, but all my videos would be like me listening, like me being like, "Oh man, that's a great point. You make a great point. You know what? you're really smart. Has anyone told you that today? Like, I think at your job, you are so undervalued, and they don't know what they have in you. But I do.
And people just watch it for
Yes,
like
that's
to
it.
feel good.
I don't know, man. I feel like
I
there's
feel
a
like
niche
that would
there.
do well, man.
There's a
Market,
niche there.
man.
Like,
Yeah.
you can watch me. I'll let you win an argument.
It's like motivational videos
Yeah.
almost. It's motivational videos.
Yeah.
You should do it.
Just put that on. Just
Yeah.
put that on me listening. It's like, what? She said what? How dare she? What'd you do? You know, just like listening. It's like but like again, like when you're saying the niches, I'm like, I think it could. Like, we should do that as an experiment, just to
Right.
see how much money I could bring in a month.
You
Watch
should.
us on the other side. We're like, I brought in $5,000, and we're like, oh God, are we doing this now? Because what I as artists though, and what I respect about, you know, hearing about your journey and even sitting with you now is like, we are a product of like the canvas around us is what we create with. And then you love the studio system, but like other canvases are being offered to you now,
Yeah.
right? And like even like your food series,
Yeah.
that wasn't really a thing 10 years ago, where you could do this thing and like this interview chatting about alternative food recipes type show, right? It needed to be, I'm gonna make this burger right now, we're gonna do this. Like, that's what it was, right?
Yeah.
But now it's like you can have those.
Well, it took me
issues.
years to sell the show. I mean,
Yeah.
Evolving Vegan came about in 2015 almost. In 2017 is when I started working on the book. It got published in 2020. You know, the show didn't come out till 2022.
Yeah.
So it took me like 7 years
Yeah.
to get the show made. And when I created the concept of Evolving Vegan, the end goal was always the show.
Yeah.
The book, I'm not a writer,
Yeah.
you know, and the book was very hard for me. The book was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do.
Yeah.
If you've ever written a book, and I know this is like a recipe cookbook mostly, there's still narrative in it, but it was one of the hardest things I had to do.
Yeah.
It is so meticulous and so time consuming that ultimately now it was worth it because I got the show made. But the goal was always the show.
Yeah.
And I'm sure for you, you know, man, like creating a show, it is one of the hardest things you can do. Because it's you're like conceiving something from scratch. And then even if the idea is good, like, of course you think the idea is good and you work hard at it, but then you got to sell it. You got to convince someone to spend millions of dollars letting you execute your idea. That's crazy. I mean, that's what entrepreneurs do. That's literally what anybody else, any entrepreneur sitting down in this chair that would come here and be like, I had this idea and I raised $10 million to do it. You'd be like, wow, that's incredible. He raised $10 million to start his business. We do that. We do that, but it doesn't get looked at that way. You know, people are like, oh, they're so lucky. They get to do it. It's like, no, but we're like entrepreneurs. You got to go convince a studio to like spend millions of dollars doing your idea that they don't really know if it'll work. So it's yeah, see, I love the studio system, but at the same time, I'm like, you know,
what
I
you
don't
needed
know.
was this. Yeah. Hey, Mina, this is a great idea. Lovely idea. I feel your
That was
passion
amazing.
every step of the way. I'd watch the hell out of this show. I'd binge all 4 seasons of it right now. I'm telling you, it's a hit. I'm ordering this show. That's what you needed.
Yeah, that's what I
That's
needed.
what you needed every step of the way. Someone ordering the show. That's it, man. Send your requests.
Yeah, that's
Send
it.
your requests of scenarios. Give me the details. Oh man, I could make some banger custom
Yo,
videos.
I think you should. You know what it'd be like? It's like motivational.
Yeah.
It is. It's like manifestation. You're helping them manifest.
Yeah, but like, you know, I firstly, what you said was like making a show is a miracle. Finishing a season of anything, finishing a movie, a project, even finishing this podcast. When we finish today, I'm gonna be driving home and be like, fuck, it was a miracle we finished this today.
It's true.
Getting stopped every 5 minutes because we got a brand logo in the way. Right? Everything, it is a miracle. So whenever I encounter other creatives, I'm always like, we did it.
Yeah, it's
did
true.
something. Or if I'm seeing a new product, something they did, I always congratulate them. Like, congrats.
And that's also, you know, what I was talking about earlier about the downside of success.
Yeah.
Is that you get so used to a level of success, then when it doesn't come, you can really fall into a deep state of depression. You really can, because you lose sight of the fact of what you just said, because what you just said is 100% true.
Yeah.
But when you're used to a level of success, you start taking that for granted, and you start going, well, why isn't it working the way it used to? Why isn't it as good as it used to be? Why isn't it as quick as it used? And then you can start falling into that mindset, and that's really, I think, the trap.
There's a merit to even keel, I feel like, right? Like when you're at your highs, you just stay. What's that loke? You know, the loke bracelet? We talked about this before in the first episode. When you're at a high point, stay hopeful, or stay humble. When you're low point, stay hopeful.
Yeah.
Right? I feel like the people who are just like I'm in sales, right? If like I remember the first time I did a sale, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited, and then I'm like depressed because nobody's responding to my calls anymore.
Yeah.
I feel like there's merit of just like, okay, cool, I got a sale done, on to the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if people shove a door in the face, or a lot of people no-show me on calls.
Yeah.
They say no to the product. They don't say no to me.
Yeah, you don't take it personally.
Yeah,
and
but sometimes it's tough. You guys are the product.
Yeah, as artists, when you are the product.
Wait, are you selling people? What are you doing?
I think it needs one of your motivational videos right now.
Look, what you're selling is something that so many people need. I don't need it, but someone will, and they're gonna buy it from you.
He sells brands to other brands, which is a really interesting thing. Are you a big Raptors fan?
I just like sports, so I don't put my heart into any one team because I don't like heartbreak.
Right. Yeah.
So like people who are like die-hard fans of a city or a team, and I'm like, well, why do you do that? You're always gonna be heartbroken. For me, I just love the sport, so there's always a winner.
Right.
There's always someone winning, and I get to be a fan of that team. So like last night, the Raptors game, it was like tough to watch, but also I'm like,
great game.
Yo, we hung in there.
Yeah.
With the MVP. We were Scotty Barnes elbow to the face away, right?
Yeah.
From winning this game. And I just love sports. I love camaraderie. And that's why I love that we're getting a WNBA franchise.
Yep.
That's why I love that we have a PWHL team. I love that I love when people can do the thing they love. That's sports. So these are athletes that love playing the game. And I love going to watch that, and I love going and being in that environment. So the more sports teams, the better. Like I went to a CEBL basketball game, 2 of them this season. And that's like the Scarborough Shooting Stars, the Calgary Surge, Edmonton Stingers. It was so much fun. Firstly, like the Raptors, obviously there's a higher ticket price. Right?
Much higher, yeah.
Much higher. CEBL games, you can get lower bowl, 4 rows back, $50.
Yeah.
Courtside's $100. You're bringing your kids. That's like a great family night out.
Yeah.
You can get even cheaper seats, but like there's music. The players are almost like they're like a lot of these guys are summer league players, right?
Yeah,
they play
yeah.
in summer league, so I'm like, they're just as good.
Yo,
right?
Kids now are amazing. Like I thought I was a good basketball player growing up. I played in the OBA, like Ontario.
What's the OBA?
Ontario Basketball
You
Association.
said it like I should know what that is.
Right. I know. I dropped it there.
Yeah,
like, yo, you
OBA.
said the
I'm
OBA,
like,
bro.
OBA.
Like I never heard of that shit.
Yeah.
But I thought I was pretty good. Yo, there's like 12-year-old kids now that could kick my ass.
Yeah.
Like the new generations are just getting so good at a young age. So I can just only imagine how good those kids are.
My son is playing in the YMCA basketball league now. It's 10 to 13, and he's 10, so he's on the young side. So we work on his skills. He's a smaller kid compared to the others, so like we work on defensive stuff. But like we were shooting around, and some of the kids started playing, and we did a dads versus kids game last week. Us dads never worked so hard in our life to maintain the edge over these kids. Like I looked at these other dads and we're like, hey guys,
We got to save
we
face.
gotta drop some elbows,
We can't lose this. Like if we lose it here, we lose it at home, we lose it in the car, we lose it everywhere we go. Okay.
Damn.
So I don't care how much it hurts tomorrow. We got to win this game today. And we ponied up and won this game.
Oh,
but the
damn.
kids are tall. They're massive, running pick and rolls. One kid can palm the ball. I'm like, who is this kid? He looks like Zach Edey. We won this game. barely won this game. We had to play a little dirty too, right?
Yeah.
But we won it. But these kids are good.
Yeah, man, they're good. Yeah, so I feel you. I
remember in elementary school, Mina was this height in like grade 6 or 7. This guy hit puberty just like that.
Yeah, I stopped aging and growing.
Yeah.
Both.
Was there rumors that you were like actually a man? Were you rumors like,
Probably.
This kid isn't 10, he's 18, okay? He's a ringer, okay? Where's his birth certificate?
Have you seen bench warmers? What do you? It's like I am 12.
Yeah. Who is this kid? I am 12.
And he has like
It's a piece of paper.
he has
I
like
am 12.
he has like a beer in his hand.
Yeah. And Tim Meadows is like, I don't think this kid can play.
I wasn't much taller than the other kids. I looked older.
You were massive, man. I rember looking up at you.
What? Get out of here. That's never happened in my life.
We're at the movies, and I'm like, bro, what happened to you this summer? You're like, hey, man, I don't know.
But that was like that happens to my son, and we use that in Run the Burbs in season 3. We did an episode where my son was trying out for the basketball team, and all the kids were too big for him. Like all the kids were much taller, and so the whole episode was me unlocking his short king potential. And so I was like, Frodo Baggins, Cisco, all short kings, right? Muggsy Bogues. And so we were teaching him to be aggressive, and then the episode ends up him being too aggressive and just working these kids and then swearing at them in Vietnamese. And they're like, no, too much, right? But it's like that's the specificity of like pulling from my life in the media that I'm really inspired by. But yeah, like going back to sports, like I am a sports fan, but I don't ride or die one team because like I can't handle the heartbreak. There's a buddy of mine, Derek, he's a big Boston Bruins fan, big Celtics fan. Obviously when the Celtics and Bruins are crushing it, he's on top of the world. I've seen him on the other side, and I don't want to be that guy. Even keel, I want to be right in the middle.
Really?
I just want to enjoy. I want friendship to win.
Right?
My favorite part of a basketball game is when they high five after missing a free
Oh
throw.
my God.
Because their friends are going to be there with them, ride or die.
I remember Mina and I we were so competitive growing up.
The OBA, yeah.
No.
Yeah, you remember
OBA
those days?
Yeah.
No, but
OBA.
I had a basketball net. Do you remember? And we used to like practice our left hands. Like we both. I feel like we both legitimately thought we're gonna make it to the NBA, or at least I thought.
I think every kid does, man. Every kid, because you.
Does your son think he's gonna make it to the NBA?
Yeah, I tell him that.
Yeah.
I believe in him.
Yeah.
I believe in him. The statistics are against him. His also genetics are against him because having an Asian dad here, 5'6", as tall as Ja Rule, isn't really helping him anywhere. But I say it because I believe in him, you know, and I believe in kids, and I think also that's like a bit of like a differences in parenting this generation. Like I think we say the things that maybe we wished our parents would say.
100%.
I blindly show kids my love, and I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. You know, I think people be like, you hug your kid too much. I'm like, I know. I hug my kid too much. I tell him I love him too much, but I don't care. I want him to know he's loved. I want him to know Dad's always got his back.
Yeah, my parents, not in a bad way, it's just who they were. I don't know if it's... My parents never told me they loved me growing up. Oh my God. Like, they did through their actions, but words, because, like, I love you in English is very, like, oh, love you, like, take care, bye, have a nice day at school, love you. We don't, that doesn't exist in Arabic, because in Arabic, the word I love you is bahibbik or bahibbak, and it's got a very romantic connotation to it, right? So you don't, like, say... Like here, I could be like, I love you, bro. In Arabic, you don't go bahibbak like to your guy friend.
Yeah.
It has like a romantic connotation to it. So there's actually no word or saying for the non intimate, I guess is the word. Like just for the friendly version of I love you. It doesn't. There's no saying for it.
Can you just like flip it up and make it a little chiller, like bahibbik?
No, like now my mom tells me and my sister she loves us, but she says it in English because there's literally nothing in Arabic to say that.
Interesting.
Whoa, that's interesting.
Yeah,
because that's her adopting almost a foreign concept.
Yes.
Right? It literally is a foreign concept to her.
Or maybe she could never voice that feeling in her own language.
Yeah.
Because there's literally nothing to voice that.
To voice that with.
You know what I mean? So it was only through action that she voiced it. Like, she cooked for us, you know, she worked at coffee time,
Coffee time.
She worked at Coffee Time.
Oh,
OG
damn,
Coffee
yeah.
Time.
Those
The
donuts.
brick walls.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
What was it? Burgundy? Like a burgundy.
it was like
branding
yellow
to it?
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
brown almost.
Yeah.
Coffee Time.
Always smell. I can smell the smoke already.
Yeah.
Right.
And the bagels, they were like known
Yeah.
for their bagels.
You could knock somebody out with that.
But I wonder if the moment she learned to say "I love you" was such a relief for her because she could start saying it,
Maybe
expressing it
you
in a
know.
way she didn't know how to express it before.
Yeah, she said it through her actions. Like she'd work these long shifts, come
Yeah.
home from work, cook dinner for us, clean. While she
we were
made
just
sure-
watching our parents grow up, man.
Yeah, honestly,
Us growing up, like us as kids, I was just watching two 30-year-olds grow up.
that's such
You're
a
30.
good way to
You're
put it.
33 now, man. Like your kid, if you had one now, is literally watching you just like because like you don't know who you are. You're still forming yourself every
Yeah.
year, every version, every day of yourself is trying to become a better version of yourself.
But does that ever stop?
No, it doesn't stop, but I'm very conscious of it. I'm very conscious that my kids are watching me grow up, so I always stop and I explain moments in time when I'm struggling, I'm not perfect, and I want them to know how I'm feeling. Like I remember a couple of years ago, I was up this role I really wanted, I didn't get, and I was like really bummed out, and I told my kids that I'm like I'm not feeling great today. He's like, why? And I'm like, I didn't get this role I really wanted, and my son looked at me. He's like, but I want you.
Damn.
Oh my gosh!
It really helped, but I want them to see the highs and lows.
Right.
I want them to know what dad goes through, so that they know when it happens to them, it isn't just a them thing.
Right.
It's a life thing. Right. So I've been bringing my kids to my improv shows, my comedy shows. I bring them to set. I show them all the projects I do. I want them to be involved in my career because I want them to see the highs and lows.
That's so sweet.
Right?
There's so much representation now, I feel like, or not so much, it can always be more, but there's more representation now in entertainment than ever before, I feel like, especially in the Asian community. And I want to ask you if you're satisfied, because I know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
But where do you want to see it go? Like what's the end goal for our communities when it comes to entertainment?
I just want good work. Like I just want good projects. I want to see really talented people be able to do things that I know they're capable of, right? And so I don't know if there ever is an end goal. I think it's more of what we're doing, more of the projects we're seeing. But on the flip side, it's more audiences reacting to it. 'Cause sometimes like I'll watch a show and be like, how are people not watching this show? Right. So I think it's just it's seeing my talented friends do cool things. But it's a tough question, man, because like I flip it back to you because I don't know if either of us know what the end game is.
Yeah, I don't know what the end game is. I think you said something that I've instantly triggered something in my head, but maybe I would love a big enough platform for people who want to express and create art, right? Mm-hmm. But then I think like, well, is there a big enough platform for anybody, to do what they love? Maybe that's just always the struggle of an artist is do you have, it's like the pursuit of the platform to create almost.
Yeah. But aren't the most satisfied artists the ones that like literally do whatever they want
whenever they want? But how do you do that as an actor? I mean, like we talked about it, you could utilize TikTok
you
and
mentioned
Instagram.
The Stratford actor, like,
yeah,
does a couple plays a year and loves it, creates on their own terms.
But yes, that's true. But even him, there's other artists that I graduated theater school with that never even got that opportunity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things. I guess now the positive side of these platforms is that you can pick up your phone, set it up, and start creating, and nobody can say anything to you. Because I always used to be so jealous of like painters.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, man, they can just go buy a canvas,
do it.
buy some paint, and start painting. And I was like, actors can't do that.
Yeah.
I need a camera and lights and action and makeup. But when you think about it, these like content creators, I guess they don't. They don't need any of that. They can literally just put up their phone and start creating.
Yeah. Look at Keith Lee, for example. Do you know Keith Lee?
The wrestler?
Yeah, I don't know.
Keith Lee is an AEW former NXT wrestler.
He's serious, man.
No, I'm serious. Keith Lee is a wrestler.
Sorry, so just the way you put your hands.
Yeah, no,
together.
I love wrestling. Let's talk about
That's
pro
awesome.
wrestling. You love Keith Lee?
No, I'm talking about Keith Lee, the influencer. And,
He was ready. Andrew was
the
ready.
social person in the room, I know.
Yeah.
Keith Lee, literally, he's a TikTok influencer, blowing up. Probably has like 20, 30 million followers on TikTok.
Okay, what does he do?
He goes to hole-in-the-wall restaurants.
Oh, yeah, Keith Lee. Yeah, I know him. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was in Toronto recently, right? Yeah,
He goes like, "Hi guys, my name's Keith Lee.
Yeah.
Today I visited this restaurant. You guys already know. I'm gonna rate it. Score
Oh,
from
I
1 to
know
10.
Keith
Yeah.
Lee.
Yes. And
Yeah.
he
I know that.
and
I
he
just
goes-
didn't know his name.
He's like,
Yeah.
"It's a little too salty for my taste. 9 out of 10. Next one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was consistency though, man.
But-
he just blew up over time,
I
right?
know, but it's just because he celebrates. He's kind
Small
of like
businesses.
Yes, he's like the Robin Hood
Yeah.
of small businesses.
But he also did doesn't he also do massive franchises like
No.
Chipotle and
No,
stuff?
no,
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 it's
no,
just
There's
a
another
mom
guy.
and
There's an
pop.
Asian guy who goes to like Costco and he'll compare like a Costco hot dog versus like a hot dog from Five Guys. There's another guy
Okay.
and he breaks down the weight and he compares per value of like is it justified or not.
Okay,
But again,
interesting.
niches. Like if I okay, let me tell you the show. I go to a Costco and I eat the hot dog in my car. That's it. Yeah, it's got millions of people. Right?
No,
like
I didn't
it's
think
like
that.
that's such a niche though, but I love it. I could sit on a toilet and watch so many videos of him eating hot dogs and sandwiches.
I think I
right?
know. I think that's it. We're all just gonna just abandon the systems we're in and go full fledged on Instagram and TikTok.
But isn't that the most artistic thing possible?
It is.
Art is creating in any canvas and situation.
I'm
you
in
know.
awe of those guys really because they
Yeah.
can wake up every day and do what they love. Like I wake up every day and do what I love too, but it's not always performing. Sometimes it's like scouring the
Facebook
industry.
Marketplace.
Yes,
Yeah, Facebook
exactly,
Marketplace for the best
exactly.
deals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're like, if
Yeah.
I buy this table,
Yeah.
I can read scripts on it,
Yeah.
right? So you're like,
Yeah.
you're like doing this shit
Yeah.
that isn't directly related, but
Yeah.
it's still you doing work.
You gotta hustle. You gotta hustle out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta
Which
do
is,
it.
that's a good segue to a question we have for young emerging artists trying to get in. Maybe somebody from Calgary,
Yeah.
who's just in awe of Saskatoon, who's
Yeah.
trying to make
Yeah.
a wave in the acting scene, who's a minority. Any advice for the next person?
So my recommendation is actually like very specific to me, and I say start doing improv. Start doing improv comedy, even if you're not a comedic performer, because I think that all actors and performers have a level of comedy.
Right.
Like Liam Neeson to me is funny. There's a sketch he did with Ricky Gervais years ago.
Oh my
right?
god!
The AIDS
Yes.
sketch,
Yes.
so good. But like, it's his commitment to the dramatic role that makes it so great. Right?
Yep.
But I'd say go do improv because for me, improv comedy had so few barriers. I didn't have to sit and take all these prerequisites. I got to just do classes and go up and jam improv with my friends and really other cool people, learn it. And then I probably do a show like a week later, right? So for me, I love having improv because it's such an outlet. And I tell young performers, go take an improv class. They're often cheap. There's like no prerequisite. You don't have to have all these other things. There's no scripts. You don't got to go learn scripts. But what I love about improv comedy is that it lets you learn about, it normalizes failure, and it lets you learn about how you behave on stage. The more in tune you could be in yourself as a performer, like you can make those adjustments, you could be in the moment with your partner, the stronger performer you'll be in the long run. I love that improv is that thing at every city you go to, there's like an improv theater company, and it's so inclusive. Improv is like a very like, yes, come join us.
Yeah.
Come play with us, right?
Yeah.
So I tell all young performers that go take an improv class, even if you're not a comedic performer.
Yeah, it really helps you accept failure as well because, when you're improvising, not everything's going to land, not everything's funny, but you learn to fail. And I was head of my improv class in high school.
Oh, you do CIG?
And grade 11 and 12.
You do Canadian improv games?
Yeah, we did a
Yeah,
lot of the improv
yeah,
games.
yeah.
Yeah. And what I loved about it was, that feeling of like just turning all red.
Yeah.
When you're that young and you're doing improv and you say something stupid and you're just blushing, right? Because you're like, that wasn't good. No one's laughing. and you do it again, and you feel that way, like, oh my gosh, no one's laughing. You tense up. Over time, you just get used to that. You get used to that. Okay, that wasn't funny. That's fine. I mean, stand-up comedy is that, I feel like, on crack, because I've never done stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
But you really feel those moments, right?
Yeah.
But it's like accepting failure, because the truth is, as an artist, there will be a lot of failure. There will be
Massive
so
amounts
much
of
failure, and you think you're okay with it, and then you enter a phase of your life where, I mean, at least I did. I entered a phase of my life where I was just so not okay with it. And then you learn to be okay with it again. You relearn to be okay with failure. And I think that's when the greatest things are made, you know? Entrepreneurs, too. There's tons of... Elon Musk has failed many times. Doesn't seem like it, because he seems everything he does works. But, you know, he's failed plenty of times. Steve Jobs failed plenty of times. Jeff Bezos. But those guys, they don't take no for an answer, and they keep going. And I feel like with artists, it's the same thing. So I love that answer. Improv is integral to being a good artist, I think, to being a good actor.
But you know what I love about improv as well is it like unlocks other skills that you use in your life, just having conversation, but even the way you process thought and thinking. I love improv for people who aren't going to be performers. Improv just for people who work in an office, for managers. My an improviser I know out in Calgary, he works with like people in the medical field using improv for like bedside manner and like relationships with patients, right? Just how to read a patient, how to analyze a situation. So it's so helpful in so many ways. I've done improv for Uber, for the Uber like head office. I've gone in and done that. I've gone into like companies and taught them improv. And it's such it makes it's so fun and silly, right? But it definitely normalizes failure. It normalizes being average, just being yourself in a scene, letting the scene come to you, and that's what I love. So that is my advice to emerging performers, because the great part is you don't have to pay a ton of money to do it, right? Because there's like so few barriers to it. You can just go and do it today, and you can start feeling it, right? Organizing an improv show, that's pretty easy. Also, if you get 10 people, man, that's great. That's great. You could do it in basements. You could do improv games in basements. So yeah, that is my advice. But I also get questions a lot of like parents who are like, well, what do I want to do with my kid? Should I get them an agent? I'm like, don't get them an agent. Don't make them hate it, right? Because like with an agent, you got to go to auditions, you got to sit for hours, right? Get them into like a young people's theater. Get them doing plays and improv and classes that they can just feel like they can learn the art form. Because once they love it, they don't need you anymore. They'll do it. They'll go out and do it on their own. They'll go hustle and they'll do it.
Yeah, that's true. You joined a couple of my classes, didn't you? When
Yeah,
we were in
I
high
did.
school?
What's so funny is that you guys were talking about this, and I remember Mina was like the lead of like the improv class, and I've always told this. I said this maybe in our first episode, that you were just like in your element, man. Or even watching him play Peter Pan growing up. Yeah. Man, this guy was just like a fire-breathing dragon, just like it was just funny because when we're in our day-to-day, we're just like our regular, like, you know, stupid selves, like messing around.
But I feel like improv really helped you, because
I didn't do improv, man. I hated it.
No, but you joined the class.
I joined the class and then I just dipped. I was
you
didn't
like it.
I gotta go do something.
You didn't like it, but I feel like it helped you, because you were never. You're more open now and goofy and silly than you ever have been in our lives. Like he was a very reserved, to himself, serious kind of kid. He was silly when we were alone, but not in front of other people. And I feel like now you're silly around everybody.
Yeah, it was a massive introvert. I remember watching improv with Mina. Yeah, Mina was incredible. I did Toastmasters. Yes, Toastmasters. They have an improv portion. Yeah, it's called Table Topics. Yeah. And table topics, it could be different things. Like you just pull like a random thing from a hat and you got to talk about it just for 2 minutes. Yeah. But I did try to do a little bit of improv in it as well. Yeah. Toastmasters did help me, but just the natural progression of working in my field of doing sales pitches like constantly, it's something that I do on a daily basis. But I feel like, man, improv, kudos to the people who do it. Like Mina saying, man, that feeling of feeling red, I lean into that shit. I'm like, man, dude. Like, what's that thing that Seinfeld says? Most people would rather be
dead than do public speaking.
Than giving the eulogy or whatever, right? Yeah. So I don't know, man. Kudos to you guys for doing that. I know we're close to time for the episode, but hoping for, I guess, like one one last piece of advice you have, I think, for people who are diverse, and not acting. I think somebody who's just trying to perhaps, maybe just navigate themselves in the industry or any industry. You are, a successful, ethnically diverse individual. Any advice for somebody?
Maybe, I guess, someone who's diverse, who doesn't see a lot of representation in the field that they're aspiring to dominate, whether that's entrepreneurship or business or athletics. We were talking about basketball, there's finally a few...
Yuki?
Like Zach Edey and, so what would you tell someone like that?
Well, so the starting point of our conversation is we talked about being an Asian actor from Alberta, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I did so many things to avoid the thing I loved, and what I loved was acting and creating and performing. But because I didn't believe I could be successful, I didn't see myself, I didn't go into it wholeheartedly. And it was only until the universe kind of led me on this path that I was like, oh man, I should do this. So my advice has always been, do what you love. If you love it, don't deny it, do it. And so if you love painting, if you love writing, find ways to paint, find ways to write, find ways to act. It might not be the thing you do full time, because that's a different piece of advice, right? But if you love acting, act. And acting, like for me, if you're doing a community play at a local playhouse, I love it. I'm actually jealous. I'm jealous that you get to have that experience, because I've been there, and to like have that camaraderie with performers who are there because they love it, right? If you're a writer, but making a movie is really hard, find a group where you could read your scripts to each other, write with a partner to make each other laugh, right? But do it because you love it. And that's everything. Like, I got a cousin, loves doing taxes. It's impressive. Like, I always thought it was a sickness. I'm like, oh, you have a sickness. You love this, right? But they love it. I'm not going to hate on it, right? So do what you love. Don't deny yourself what you love. And it goes with people. Whoever you love is who you love. Tell them you love them. Don't wait another day. Tell them you love them. Your mom told you she loves you, right? And what I'm telling you right now is, if you love doing it, you should do it, because it would be a disservice to you and a disservice to the world for you not to share your gift. And who's telling you that? Me, Canada's Andrew Phung, is telling you that.
We're on OnlyFans.
Yeah, we're on OnlyFans. Please click below to tip and to subscribe.
What a great way to end it. That is great. Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah,
man. What a joy to have you.
Thank you for inviting me
Thanks
into
for
your
being on
mom's
the show.
basement, man. It's so cool, like, that she lets you do this, man.
I
She
love
gonna
her
cook
for it.
dinner. She making
And
dinner
she'll come
upstairs?
down and tell us she loves us very
Tell us she
soon.
loves us, or just give us some notes. Give us a page full of notes.
Thanks, Mama Masood.
Yeah,
I appreciate you.
yeah.
Oh, man.
Thanks for tuning in and listening. Please subscribe, share, and join the journey of Growth Untold. Don't miss a single nugget. Hit that follow button now on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and Instagram.